Hello and welcome back. So I want to talk a little bit about leading chords. Leading chords, musically speaking, guide your ear from one chord to another in a very predictable fashion. They help you to create a sense of the music going in the right direction. And they can also be used to create a sense of misdirection in the music. So you will be, musically telling someone's ear that this is the direction we're going, but no, we're not, we're going over here. And for songwriters and people who work with melodic content, it's just a tool, like so many of the things that we do with the instrument, a musical tool. Now, the most common leading chord in music is the dominant seventh chord. The dominant seventh chord is the fifth chord in any major key. And for anyone who doesn't know what the chords of a key are, the universal map for the chords of a key are, I suggest you study up on that one, because that alone is really important to understand. Now, for the purpose of this exercise or this video, I'm going to use the key of G major. The fifth note in the key of G is D. G, A, B, C, D. Okay, so D7 or D dominant seventh will be the chord that I use to lead back to G. Right, the dominant seventh leads to the root, so it's kind of like a tension chord that leads back to the root. So no matter what chords I'm playing from the key, it sort of wants to resolve to the G. So the signpost for G, or the leading chord for G, is the dominant seventh, D7. Now, if I change to A, right, A, C sharp, E, right, E being the fifth, E7 would become the chord that leads so you get that D in there, that dominant seventh, and that leads back to the A. And so on and so forth. If it was B, it would be, the leading chord would be F sharp dominant seventh. So, very, very simple. Now, I also like to use inversions, okay? Because inversions point even stronger. They are even a bigger point towards the next chord. And an example, I'll go back to G, and I'll use the example of, I want to move from G, let's say, to A, and I want to point. So if I want to point to A, I use the dominant seventh chord, which is E, right, E7. So if I want to go from G and I want to point towards A, I would use the E7, and I'd use the D7 to go back to G. Now, an even stronger way to point is to move the bass in the direction of the chord that you're trying to go to. So if I'm going from G to A, I want to move towards it, right? So I'm going to use an inverted chord, right? I'm going to play the E, but I'm going to play it using the G sharp here as the root note. Now, an inversion is really simple. It's simply the notes of the chord played in a different sequence. So instead of, like in this case, G major having G, B, D, right? Instead of playing the G as the low note, I'm going to play a first inversion. I'm going to play B, D, and G. So that I've taken the low note and I've flipped it up on top, so that now I'm starting on the third of the chord. And I can do the same and play a second inversion by starting on the fifth, then playing the root, and then the third. So I'm going to use the E, where are we, with the G sharp, which is the third, to lead. So and it leads really strongly. Now the other type of chord that you can use to lead, the common chord, would be the diminished, which has very strong links to the dominant 7th chord because it has a flat 7th and the same first inversion root, and can also be used. Okay, so all of these can be used the same way. Yeah, so they're a really good one. You have them in, they're like first position chords. And here I'm using like a C shape, like if you took an open C chord and moved it up a whole step, put a bar there, then that's all I'm doing. In second position bar chords, you've got like the A bar chord to be used. Plus, you've also got the diminished, which kind of looks like a D chord moved up one string, just with your first finger, thrown in there as well, to create the leading note. Okay, and these create the connections between chords that guide your ear. I've heard a number of players who kind of play but don't get these connecting chords, so when they hear them in the original songs, they're not really sure what they're listening to, and they kind of fudge their way around it, and it doesn't need to be that way. It's actually really simple. So yeah, so connecting chords, utilizing the dominant 7th, utilizing the diminished chord in a key. Now a diminished chord is a root, a minor 3rd, a flattened 5th, and a full diminished is has a flattened 7th as well. So so whether you're just using the root, the dominant 7th, or a combination of any of those, those notes from within the diminished chord, you'll still get that sound, right? Yeah. So try playing around with some leading chords and see if you can't throw them in there. And there are lots of variations on the dominant 7th chord. Like for example, instead of the B here, I'm playing a D on a B bass. Okay. Then I'm playing a D minor on a B bass. And here, how that just wants to resolve. So there are a lot of variations. So there are a lot of variations, and that lead back to a certain chord. Have a play with them, see what you can come up with, and most of all, have as much fun as possible. Take care.